Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammy. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired. Welcome back to the Happy Soul Podcast, everyone. Today, we are so excited to be joined by my cousin, Francois. And Francois has an amazing son named Benjamin who has a rare gene disease that we've been wanting to do an episode based around Rare Gene Disease Day. And I've been wanting to talk to Francois about this story for a long time. And I reached out to him and he said yes. And we're just so excited to dive into the story and talk about Benjamin and talk about your life. And just really excited to just hop right in here. Hi, Francois.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good. So I guess I want to just start because I actually don't know the name that he's been diagnosed with, because I know it's like a very complex name and I never remember the actual diagnosis. Can you tell us what his diagnosis is?
Sure, it's changed a few times. So just recently, so the genetic testing evolves. They change kind of what he's been diagnosed as. The original diagnosis was ponto cerebeller hypoplasia type 3, which was exceedingly rare. He was one of 6 people on the planet that had ever been diagnosed with it. But with more genetic testing, so we had some genetic testing done in 2020, and now it's changed to CASK MICPCH. So PCH being ponto cerebeller hypoplasia, CASK MIC, so CASK MIC. So again, very, very rare. There's only been about 277 people diagnosed with it, but it's on the X chromosome, so very few. And if you were to Google it, you wouldn't find even a number of how many males survived past birth with it, actually. So he's kind of the outlier for this. Yeah.
And he's 16, right?
Yeah, he'll be 17 in August, so he's 16 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it must be wild, because with only that many people being diagnosed with it, and most of them, when they're male, not surviving past birth, like everything that they do to help him is like unknown and a guessing game, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So they, to help him, we treat kind of just the symptoms or kind of the things he has. The diagnosis itself is just a wordy way of explaining, I guess, for medical people what he actually has. But as far as like, he had scoliosis, he had cerebral palsy, he's got optic nerve atrophy, so he doesn't see well. Microcephaly, which is a small head. He's got, he's kind of spastic. He's got a seizure disorder. So he's got all these things that fall under the umbrella of CASK MICPCH. And so we treat all those things into a treat. We just we're pretty laid back day to day with what he's got. So yeah.
That's incredible.
Sorry, Sammy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what a trooper he is, like paving the way for himself with being one of the male survivors. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And it's you don't know until you kind of go through it. Like, we didn't know he was one of 6 when he was born, and then we don't know that one of 277 and very few males of, like, we don't know, and he's blissfully unaware. So that's kind of a really good thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's such a happy person.
Mm-hmm.
He's so joyful. Can we rewind back a little bit, I wonder? Can we rewind back? You had no idea when he was born, right?
No, so when the ultrasound when he was in utero showed that he had a club foot. So we knew he had a club foot.
Okay.
And he was born to term. Mom was healthy. So all that stuff, no big deal. He wasn't breathing when he was born, but they brought in a crash team and resuscitated him. So that had nothing to do with his disability. So yeah, we had no clue.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What were your first clues that something might be happening here?
So he wasn't, there was a couple things. His first pediatrician, Ben wasn't really growing. If you were to see him now, he's 46 pounds and he's almost 17. So he's teeny. But yeah, he wasn't growing. So the pediatrician diagnosed him with failure to thrive. But the other thing people didn't like, I noticed my wife is Christy. She didn't really notice this. Ben wasn't looking at people. Like he wasn't looking around like a baby would. And we just were like, oh, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess those are the two things. He wasn't staring at people, looking at people. But again, we thought, oh, maybe he's got some kind of visual impairment. He just needs glasses. And he wasn't growing. So the failure to thrive. Yeah. But again, at that point, no specialists or anything, just,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
That's a hard sentence to hear.
Yeah. And we were like, it's not like we're not trying to feed him. He's just not
Right.
not eating, right? And from there, he got a G tube, NG tube, which is a feeding tube through the nose, which he kept pulling out. We went that year. I can't remember the exact year, but we went to Texas that Christmas, and he had the NG tube in his nose, and he kept pulling it out while we were there. They'd showed us how to put it back in, so we kept putting it in. He kept pulling it out, and then we just gave up on it. And then when we came back, talked to that pediatrician again and got a G tube put in. So it was definitely more permanent, and we could just put food in him.
How old was he when he first got the NG tube and the G tube?
He was, I got notes here. and NG tube 2009, so he was a year old.
Okay. So that's when he was diagnosed with failure to thrive, was that a year?
About a year, yeah. And then they put the G tube in. So that was in December when we were there for Christmas. And then in January we got back and we got the G tube put in right away. Because again, he was really little, so he needed those nutrients.
Yeah. So for a whole year, it was just, he's not eating enough and he's not like locking eyes with anybody and looking around and stuff. That was all that you guys.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
Yeah. And the club foot, like he had that club foot too. So he had like, he was wearing kind of like a snowboard on his 2 feet to correct his club foot. Yeah.
I forgot about the snowboard.
He had the snowboard thing on his feet to try to fix it. It didn't work.
What happened and at what age did you guys receive a diagnosis for Ben?
So, and again, another year later, so January 2010, he got the thing. Then a neurologist. We saw a neurologist again at around 1 year old, to get some testing done. So it kind of worked out strangely. So when we met with the neurologist when he was a year old, there was an intern there just doing training. So then we fast forward to the my dates might be slightly off by a few months, but whatever. Then when we were at the hospital to get the G tube in, that same intern just happened to be interning at like the G tube part of the hospital, the gastro thing. So she saw that we were there and she knew that the results from our genetic testing were in. So she actually went and got the neurologist, who also happened to be working at the time, to come and talk to us. And then she's the one who told us about the ponto cerebeller type 3 at the time. So we were there to getting the G tube in. My dad, I think, was with Christy at the time when the neurologist came, and I came back and they were kind of crying. I'm like, what's going on here, guys? And they were told the diagnosis. Then we were told not to Google it because you're not going to find much information, and Dr. Google's the worst doctor there is. So yeah, so it was all kind of a blur. So when we first saw that neurologist, he was about a year, let's say. Yeah.
And I know you said earlier in our conversation that they were told that or maybe this was before we even started recording, but that they originally thought that he should only have 6 months to live, or shouldn't really, but now he's 16, 17.
Yeah.
So what did they tell you at that conversation about his diagnosis? Do you remember, like, about like life expectancy and what his life's gonna look like and all that kind of stuff?
So because there were not many people with it, and that's what they said, like typically 6 months PCH3, PCH2. So there were, again, the diagnosis has changed, but PCH2 was one where people have all kinds of respiratory issues and those types of things. So they just suspected maybe the PCH3, he'd have the same issues, which he didn't. He's never had respiratory issues. So they said, maybe 6 months-ish, prepare for that kind of thing. And that was it.
That conversation, like, did you, like, I know your personality, but, but like when you walk into that conversation, if you don't mind me going here.
Yeah.
And you hear something like that, what was your immediate reaction? Were you like panicked, or were you like, there's not many cases to go by here, so we're forging ahead and we're going to be a unique story here. Like, we're going to be not in those numbers. Like, did you feel like, not us, or were you like,
It was
panicking?
I was more concerned about his not eating. Like the diagnosis of whatever he had didn't really matter to me
Mm-hmm.
personally because it wasn't going to change anything, right? You can
Yeah.
say whatever you want, it's not going to change anything. So I was more worried that he was small. Did I Google it? Of course I Googled it because you want to know everything about it, and then you're like, oh, there's only 6 people. If I'm, I think 3 of them were related, and they lived in the Middle East somewhere. Because it's on a certain gene, right? Ben was a mutation, though. That's what they're telling us at the time. So lots when they did the genetic testing, they asked Christy and I right out if we were related or if there was any chance that we were related, because that way the gene could be carried, maybe if we carried it. But neither of us, obviously, not related. Thankfully, that would have been weird.
That'd be one way to find out, hey?
Yeah.
What? We're cousins?
We're cousins? Oh no. I thought your family was English. I met your family. They're all English. Yeah.
Nobody's talking with their hands.
No, this isn't right.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's kind of that
That's
we were
wild.
given the diagnosis, and we were like, what do we do? Do we keep him in a bubble? Do we? Yeah.
I really want to ask you about Ben and his personality and like things like that, but I want to ask you this one more question, and it's because we did like spinal muscular atrophy awareness month, and we talked to the children of parents who were told that their kids would only going to live like till they were like 2 or 3 years old. And so they're like, I can't really speak to what my parents thought, but I'm 40 now, so it's great. So I just want to ask you about that. I want to ask you like what that was like, being told that your kid probably only has so much time to live, and now seeing like that's not coming to fruition. Like he's far exceeded that. Like, what is that like for you as a parent, having that be told to you, and then like you're like this amazing journey that he's still going, you know?
Yeah, it was super tough, obviously, at the time, and we weren't sure what to do. We're like, oh my goodness. But it's actually we had changed pediatricians. So there was this nurse for home care that said, there's this pediatrician in town. He is amazing. Oh, I'm getting the feels. I'm sorry. I'm gonna choke up a little bit. Anyway, I saw the pediatrician yesterday with Ben. But so we went to see him, and this pediatrician specializes in people with disabilities. So you go to his workplace, and there's like everybody's got something. So the first time ever meeting with him, he said, yeah, they said all these things about Ben. So you could wrap him in bubble wrap and stay home and do nothing. Or you could take him out, experience the world. He's like, just go do it. Why not? You don't know. Ben's unique. He's so unique. You just never know how his life's going to be. And that is what we've done. Ben has been everywhere. Yeah. And we'll continue to tape him everywhere. So yeah, that doctor is awesome.
That's amazing. That must have been like an incredible thing to hear from
It
the
was,
doctor.
and I'm sure for him it was, he deals with people like this all the time, right? Or not like Ben specifically, but all kinds of different people with rare disabilities and things. But so yeah, for him to just say, you could bubble wrap him, you really could. You could keep him home and he'll not have a great quality of life, or you can take him out and go everywhere. So that's what we've done. We've traveled all over the States. Ben was actually granted a Make-A-Wish when he was 5, which was an interesting process. We had no idea how that would work. People come to our house, ask us if he likes Disney characters, and we're like, he does, but he would hate Disneyland because he'd get scared at rides and all these things. So they granted this Make-A-Wish, and we went to a Sesame Street resort in Jamaica, which was awesome. We didn't even know that existed, but he loved Sesame Street and he loved water. So at the time we were like, cool. Yeah, I know. It's just that kind of thing, right? So we travel. I carry him around in a backpack. I haven't since he's had scoliosis surgery, so I haven't carried him around since that surgery. But normally, yeah, I have this Osprey backpack that I've been carrying him around, and we go up mountains, we go hiking, we do everything. We're not going to keep him bubbled up.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Like the life that you've given him is really extraordinary, and I love like from an insider's perspective. Because I've witnessed this on the outside.
Yeah.
But like watching you find ways to make it happen. Like, okay, he has to sleep in a certain way and he has to travel in a certain way, and these are the things we have to be careful with. So like, you have found ways to adapt. Didn't you adapt your camper for him?
We tore out, yeah. So we got a camper, and there was like a couch bench in there, and we were trying to. Yeah, Christy gets all the credit for this, not me. But we were trying to figure out a way to get him to sleep in there because he needs to sleep. He sleeps in a recliner because so he doesn't aspirate, so he doesn't choke up and breathe his fluids. So anyway, so went in there one day, and Christy had torn out the couch, and she's like, "Here, now we can put his chair here." I'm like, oh, okay. Like we kind of discussed it, but not really. So we just ripped that all out, and we're like, perfect, it's good now. So yeah, it's just small things like that. But when we do travel, at first we would bring his recliner everywhere, but that took a lot of space. So then we discovered, actually at a family reunion. Yeah, at a family reunion up in High River, actually, one of my cousins had this reclining chair, like reclining camping chair. This was really big, and we were like, that would be perfect. So we bought that, and that's what we travel with now because it folds nice and flat. And then when we're at a hotel, we open it up, cover it in pillows. We made a harness for it so he can't. It's another thing about Ben, he doesn't stop moving. So if he's not harnessed down in a bed, he'll definitely try to escape. And escape not meaning he can like run off, but like just fall out of it because he's rolling. So yeah, we have this reclining chair that we've modified. You have to do that. My mother-in-law, I got a sleeping bag so I could take Ben out in the wintertime. So he's got this sleeping bag that she cut and sewed holes in the bottom so that his harness can get through the bottom of it while he's in his wheelchair to keep him harnessed in it while he's in this sleeping bag while we're outside. So yeah, they just things you have to do. You just have no choice.
Adaptations.
Yeah.
Also the bouncer. I got to tell Sammy about the bouncer because it's so cool. Francois' dad is like super, I don't know, handy doesn't seem like the right term because he's more than handy. He's like a craftsman, and he makes stuff. Like, he's the most amazing creative woodworker. Like, and so they have this when you put your kids in those bouncers, they have a bouncer for him. And as Ben has gotten taller, he's added wood to the bottom of it, but like beautifully done, like in the shape, not just slap it on there, like in the shape of the bottom feet of the bouncer, in the exact shape of it. And they just keep adding on. So now it's like tall enough for him to go in still. Isn't that cool?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Francois, like you're saying, like things that have to be done, and they aren't things that have to be done. They're things that you and your family have chosen to do to give Ben an incredible life. Because not everybody would do those things. Not everybody, many people would wrap him in a bubble. Many people would say, well, we can't go camping because he can't get there. We can't go camping because, and you guys shifted the narrative. And I just want to give you credit for that because I think it's really beautiful what you guys have done to help him have an incredible life too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I talked to other people. I have a friend who, their son also had scoliosis surgery. And about a month ago, he was at my house and we were talking. And he had said I didn't know they did this, but so their son's also in a wheelchair. He had a motorboat built for their son where they put harnesses so that they could strap the wheelchair down while he motorboats. And then he asked me if I'd be willing this summer to go with Benjamin. And I was like, I don't know. Like, that sounds absolute. Ben would love it, but it would be terrifying for me to have him strapped down on this motorboat that Buddy had built for his son, because his son likes to do that kind of stuff. But I don't know, it sounds very scary to me. And I was like, I if he falls off or if his wheelchair bounces off somehow and he doesn't swim, I could sort of swim, but not enough to hold a wheelchair out of the water. Like, it was just all these thoughts went through my mind. So we'll see if that happens. But I think every parent, or maybe not every parent, but I think a lot of parents, you cope and you adapt as you go.
Yeah, that's true. I want to ask you to tell us about Ben. Like, what is something that you want everyone to know about Ben and his personality?
He is always cheerful. So yesterday when I was kind of reading up about I just wanted to be ready for this. One of the things on the list of personality for people the list I read said behavioral things for children. One of him has joyful, always joyful. And I couldn't believe it because I'm like, that is exactly Benjamin. Like the other things, they do sensory things, and Ben does that. He flaps his hands in front of his face and he chews at his shirts and stuff. But he's very rarely upset or crying or anything like that. He loves to have fun just like any other kid. He just got to figure out what he wants to do, but he'll laugh. He's mostly laughing. If he's crying, he's hungry or tired, and otherwise he's moving, bouncing and playing. And he does have a sense of humor. If you got stuff on a table, he'll throw it down and he'll think it's funny. He's a little boy. He farts. He thinks it's hilarious, and he laughs like crazy if he farts. So those types of things. I'm chewing gum and I pop a bubble. He thinks that sound is hilarious. So yeah, he's just very chill. Yeah.
That's awesome.
My kids love to play that game with him when we're at reunions and he throws the things and gets people to pick them up for them. And my kids think it's just the most hilarious thing. Like they will stand there and Mom, I gotta give Benjamin back his toy. Like, I think he's got you, honey. I think he's doing that on purpose. And then they start kind of teasing with him. It's so sweet.
Yeah. We wish he could have actually just schooling and stuff, right? He's 17. He should be or he's almost 17, should be in grade 11 or 12. We actually fought to keep him in play school back in the day because we're like, it would not be, again, not seeing Ben, but if you did meet him, he's cognitively probably a 6-month to a year old, and he's the size, he's 46 pounds. So we wanted to keep him in play school, but unfortunately they wouldn't let us. And we're like, if he was in a regular school, he would just be in his wheelchair and not, he would be in a school of 17-year-olds. It just wouldn't be the right place for him to be, unfortunately. But it would have been cool because could have been with kids that would just play with him. He'd be the permanent play school kid in his 20s.
Right? Why did they say no?
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what the laws are. He does have a teacher. The teacher comes to his grandma's house during the day once a week, but probably his age. I just assume it's his age.
That's interesting because there was definitely kids in my school that were older than they should have been in elementary school and in high school, that they were cognitively the same age as the grade they were in, but they were actually like 18, 19 when we were in school. So that's interesting that was
this is probably 10 years. This is a long time ago, but it was definitely something we wanted to do. We just couldn't do, which is whatever. It's fine.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I might hit a nerve here. Prepare.
Shoot, go for it.
Okay, so when you were getting the diagnosis and you're starting to learn what this is looking like, and you're learning about his partial visibility and the things that he is going to, what his abilities are going to be and where he might be a little bit hindered. And I might be wrong here, but did you think he would never speak at that time?
Oh yeah, we weren't sure, but we didn't think he would speak. We didn't know what his vision was like. So he has a cortical visual impairment and optic nerve atrophy. So the best way to describe it is like he's looking through Swiss cheese all the time. When he's looking at you, and if he's really focusing, he'll put his head down and kind of look. So I don't know if his peripheral vision is better than staring right at you, but and he doesn't speak much. He says dad.
I was just going to ask that.
Hi.
What was that like the first time you heard him say that?
Great. It was probably what did he just say? Did you say dad? Yeah. He'll say hi. I think he says umpa, like grandpa. That's pretty much it. I can't off the top of my head.
Just hearing him say dad, the first time I heard him say, I'm like, I have thought about that often, about what that must have felt like for you to hear that for the first time. The first time I heard it, I was like, did he just say dad?
Yeah.
Did I just hear that?
Yeah.
How cool. That just must have been.
He says dad. Yeah. So cool. He loves everybody, but he's definitely attached to his dad. So makes me happy that he says dad for sure. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I'm good with
That's me. That's my name.
Me. Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, Sammy, do you have something there?
I was just curious, and I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, but is his speech, is that because his mentally is between 6 months to a year, or is it because he doesn't? I don't know Ben. I've never met him, never seen him,
Yeah.
but or is it because he physically can't do it? Like, is there?
Yeah, no, I think it's developmentally. Physically, he makes lots of noise. Like he mumbles and he vocalizes a lot. I think he just doesn't have the ability to form words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And because
Mental.
he'll understand a lot of things, not complex things, but he'll understand if you're like, hey, look at Melissa. He'll look at Melissa and he remembers people's who they are and stuff. So
Okay, that makes sense. That makes
yeah.
sense.
Okay, can you talk to us about, like, is there community with this, being that it is so rare? Did this launch you into the rare gene community? Have you surrounded yourself in people that are also walking in roads that are kind of unknown territory? How does that work?
So yes and no. Myself, no, I haven't, but Christy has. Christy's online. There's a ponto cerebeller hypoplasia community online. I don't know if it's a Facebook group or what it is, but she's more into that than I am. I don't know. I'm not as social as her, I guess. So, but we've met people. So we, in our travels, we've gone to a few different meetups. We met up with a group of people of PCH in San Antonio. There's an accessible play park there, like rides and water. Ben is more so the water. So it's kind of, I can't remember what the place is called, but we met up with there with, I can't remember, 5 or 6 other families. We've also met up twice with a group of people at PCH in Salt Lake City. So one time, again, we went to a splash park, had lunch, hung out with parents and kids. Another time we went to a friend's house down there. But quite a few of those kids have passed away since, which is very sad. But yeah, so it's a community, but it's a community of sadness once in a while. And I won't know, but I'll come home and Christy will be crying and say, hey, you remember this kid Jet that we met, let's say. Like, yeah, I remember meeting him. Seeing him in the hospital. We went to the hospital in Salt Lake to visit. I think it was him. So yeah, she's definitely more into that than I am. Yeah.
Would you say that you're like, so if her avenue is kind of surrounding herself in the community and or finding community and making community around it, would you say that you're more like, you have said before, find the symptom, treat the symptom? Like, are you more like, what needs to be done in this moment?
Yeah, because what needs to be done with Ben isn't dated, like whatever, like all his symptoms, all the things he has. It's not, yeah, I just like to hang out with him. Like there's other people. I know there's somebody in the community that's kind of just starting their journey with their kid who's quite young and had lots of questions. And Chrissy's been kind of telling her, talking to her, and be like, hey, do this, do that. But really, like, you have to get rid of your expectations of you being a parent. You got to get rid of those whatever your expectations were beforehand, and kind of, it's a blank slate, and you got to go forward with whatever it gives you. I think she's trying to tell this mom that, but that's hard to hear. So yeah, but for me, I just day to day, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One day at a time, and you're just kind of doing your thing one day at a time. And
yeah, we just, yesterday Ben and I hung out a bit, went to a doctor's appointment. Like it's normal stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sammy.
I was just say, you sound very much like my husband. I don't know, it just is what it is. I just keep going. Like, whatever. It's fine. It's just what you do. That's my husband asks. I don't think, I just do.
Yeah,
So, I'm not saying that's you, but that's my husband.
No, that's definitely me. Even yesterday in preparing for this for about, it's like, hey, Christy, can you write me a list? She had everything memorized and she wrote everything down on these papers, days, like with specific dates on when surgeries were, when all these things. I know these things happened, but it's more of like a general, it happened in Ben's life, not it happened in November of 2009 kind of thing. Yeah. So she's definitely more on it than I am.
Yeah, that's my husband
wild.
too. So I feel like if I ask you the question that like what it was like having to change your expectations of parenting Ben specifically, you may not have an answer for me.
Well, yeah, it's just changing kind of, I don't even know it's expectations, but just how we would have to live our lives. Because Avery, our oldest, was 6 at the time, I think, somewhere around there, 5 or 6. So that was my experience in parenting, was with her, and she could do everything. She developed perfectly fine. So with Ben, it was just a bit different and a lot slower, uh, what he was able to do. And, oh, you need surgery for this, and all these different doctors and specialists and all that stuff. It's just very different from a typical kid that you never need to really see a doctor. You never need to consider, how you're going to feed them or how you're going to travel. Like I said earlier, we flew to Texas that year, 1 year for Christmas when he was 1. Not at the time, it was no big deal. But now if I think of trying to fly with Benjamin, I don't know that I could. I don't think I could travel anywhere with him on a plane solely because of all the stuff we would have to bring. There's just so many things we would have to bring along with us that would make that very difficult. So what we do now is, throw everything in my truck and drive around North America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Which is also great.
How? Oh,
no.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because you have a younger daughter as well, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
Was there any like difficult feelings, or what were the feelings like around having subsequent kids after that?
Yeah. So we weren't sure at first if, what do we do? Like if we have another kid, what are the chances of that kid having this disability? And ultimately he was one of 6 at the time that we knew diagnosed with it. The chances would be extremely unlikely, particularly because we weren't related, which was fantastic. So we just had a kid and she was fine. So I believe when she was in utero, there were more tests than normal, but other than that, and she's a firecracker and loves her brother very much.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have to say, one of the most endearing things I think I've witnessed, again, from like the outside looking in, it's like the outside inside circle. Like, I'm not in the immediate inside circle, but like, remember when we talked about the circles with Heather?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so like looking from the outside in and watching your family interacting with each other, watching the kids interacting with him and him interacting with the kids is just one of the most incredible things. Like your youngest daughter, she has such an empathetic, beautiful heart. They both do. Both of your daughters do. I shouldn't just single her out. They both do. It's just their bond is incredible to witness. Like,
yeah, no, Poppy and
so cool.
Yeah, Avery and Poppy are both, like you said, they're both very empathetic. I share Avery with her mom. So growing up, she wasn't home all the time. Like she wasn't here all the time. Whereas Poppy grew up with Ben all the time. And Avery was the older sister. Poppy grew up with Ben already here. He was born. So, but now she would carry him around the house. She will carry him around the house, and we'll leave her with him for a few hours. She's perfectly fine. Big sis babysits. Like if it's a longer time or overnight or whatever, definitely big sis is here. But otherwise, yeah, no, they are fiercely protective of him as well. So yeah. And I don't know if having a brother like that's why they're like the way they are, or if that's just, who knows? Yeah.
I think
So cool.
based on just meeting you, I would say it also has to do with kind parents, because you clearly have a very kind, giving, like, I don't know if accommodating is the right word. That's not really the right word, but like your desire to just give Ben the most normal life possible is very apparent. And so I feel like you radiate that to your kids as well.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but yeah, definitely. Poppy would never think Ben couldn't do something. Like she would just be like, yeah, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we going there? Why aren't we doing this? It's like to her, we'll figure out.
It's like, yeah, it's like a really cool blend of pragmaticness and empathy mixed together. Like that pragmatic, like, yeah, why can't we go do that? I'm just going to pick him up and bring him over here. But it's in a very empathetic way. Like it is a very cool combination. It's very, and like you said, like, is it because you guys have walked this path, or is it just who you are? I mean, I think you, it's who you are. It's who you've always been. And that I think is the greatest gift to Ben. But for the girls, like, is it who they are? Is it because I don't know, but it is really it's really cool. It's like the perfect combination
Yeah, I think
between those two things.
it's probably a mix of me and Christy for sure. I'm very much, we're gonna do this. Yeah, why not? Like, why aren't we gonna do this? I don't know. Like, we were in Ottawa a couple summers ago, and I wanted to go somewhere, but there were stairs in the way, and Ben was in his wheelchair. I'm like, how are we gonna get up there? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pick him up in his wheelchair, and we're gonna get up there. That's just what we're gonna do. So that's kind of me. And then there's Christy, who is yeah, she's like a fireball. So you know, if there's an obstacle in the way, she'll demolish it, whatever it is, if she thinks it'll benefit her children. So yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
It's
Whereas
described it perfectly.
yeah, and it doesn't matter. Like, don't say he can't do this. So I'm more that it's in front of me, get it done. She's the more in the background or whatever. She'll get it done. Yeah.
So good.
And the kids see that. I guess you're right. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
How many surgeries has he had? Do you have that off the top of your head? That might be a hard question.
No, he hasn't had terribly many. He has the club foot surgery. So he was born with a club foot. He had a surgery to do a tendon release. So essentially they cut his Achilles tendon, put his foot back to where it was supposed to be. That said, it got extremely infected under the cast. We knew there was something wrong with him. So then they cut a section of his cast out to see the infection, tried to treat it. It wasn't working. And then we were at the university 3 times a day doing an antibiotic treatment. We told him to take the cast off, take the pin out that was in his foot, just because it was causing him so much distress. So he had the club foot surgery, but he still has a club foot, and we could do another surgery if he wanted. He also had the G-tube surgery, which was more of a minor surgery. And then his most major surgery was just the scoliosis surgery this past November, which I believe he was in there for 7 hours. Felt like 3 days to us. So yeah, but they fixed his spine, fixed his rib cage. He grew 13 centimeters, I believe.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So
Sammy,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Francois.
Yeah, it was when we went to the post-op appointment with his pediatrician. Yeah, they measured him, and he was 13 centimeters taller. And they said, even if we measured it differently last time, like, it's never perfect. He's still 10 centimeters taller, no matter what. He's significantly tall, and he looks much straighter. He used to be all crooked. And he can't he can't arch forward and stuff. So he's taller and straighter, and his rib cage looks great. So it's all good. Yeah.
The pictures are insane. Like the pictures of the X-ray pictures before and after surgery of the scoliosis are absolutely, I mean, they're incredible. I can't believe they can do that.
Yeah, I tell people, it went from question mark, and it really did look like a question mark, his spine, to it's very straight with a slight curve at the top now. It's just unreal that they can, and confident.
I can't get over 13 centimeters. Like, what?
He's 13 centimeters, yeah. So let's say
I'm doing inches either way. Centimeters.
You're Canadian, Sammy.
13, not inches. So about 4 inches.
Still,
4 or 5 inches. Yeah, no, it's
my brain was big, but even going down is still that's a lot.
It's his neck. His neck just seems longer and straighter, but obviously his whole back. But yeah, just from right above the hips all the way up to his neck.
That's wild.
If you're comfortable with it, Francois, if you're comfortable with it, and you don't have to answer me now either, but if I have your permission, I'll show Sammy the pictures.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Of the X-rays, it's absolutely amazing.
What's it like for you, Francois, speaking with us today, sharing this with about Ben? Not only a sense of like for you personally, but like our goal is to help raise awareness around different rare genes for Rare Gene Disease Day. What's that like for you?
Talking about it?
Yeah,
it's fine. I have no problem talking about Benjamin's, as much as I can. Like, it's so rare, and I'm not a doctor, and I printed out some stuff we got from a genetic test, and I can barely read half of it because it's all, medical speak. I think I'm a pretty bright guy, but still I read it and I'm like, no. But I'll talk. Yeah, I like talking about it because I want people to know that it's just another kid. So whatever their kid has, again, it's just another kid. They might have some challenges. Things are, don't be naive. It's going to be difficult, but it is just another kid, and everybody's kids have something, right? So you just got to figure it out and go along with it. Yeah, it's talking it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind talking about it at all.
You remind me so much of my husband. You guys, like, how's your day? It's good. Yours? Also good. Great. Good job.
There's
Yep. That's pretty much it. It's good.
There's that pragmaticness. My mom has that too. That pragmaticness is so awesome. I love it. I don't think I caught that gene. I caught the overthinking one. I didn't catch the pragmaticness.
It was funny though when Ben was born. So Christy and I both worked in the disability field at the time. So people would often say, lots of people would say, oh, well, at least you guys, you know what you're getting, like, you know what you're getting into, or at least you're prepared, right? And I know when they were saying that, it came from a good place, and they're trying to say, oh, at least you have experience with people with disabilities. But it is not the same as being a parent and like learning all these things and living it day to day and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
What's interesting about you saying that is I feel like if you worked in childcare and then you had kids and you're like, I have kid now, they'd be like, nobody would say, well, at least you have experience because you worked in childcare. They'd be like, yeah, being a parent is hard. So
yeah.
Nobody would say that about general parenting. So why are they saying it that way? Like,
exactly. But it all came from a good place, I'm sure. But.
Yeah. And most of the things people say do. Sometimes they're just not easy to hear.
Yeah.
What I know you kind of alluded to this earlier, and I don't know if the answer you gave is exactly what you would say, but I want to ask, you said you met somebody who's new in this journey with their own child, and your advice to them what you just said was to kind of change your expectations of what the parenting journey is going to look like. But if you were to sit down with someone who is new, and it was like you and this person face to face, and they're new into the journey, new to a similar diagnosis, or parenting a child with a rare gene disease, what would you say to that parent?
What I say, yes, Christy's talking to that person on the Facebook now. I think they're actually in Edmonton. But for me, if I was just to sit down, I would just say, get rid of their expectations. I would give them the advice that Ben's doctor said, and, get them out of that bubble. And also, science changes all the time. So whatever the diagnosis is, so he went from PCH3 to CASK MICPCH. Those are just words. That's just what the medical community is, labeling your kid to have for whatever reason. But your kid is just your kid. So treat them like that. Go out, have fun, do everything you can. If they have limitations, then just do everything you can within their limitations. Don't just hide. Don't hide them. People are going to look at your kid. Like, you see my kid in his wheelchair, he's tiny. So people might think he's a baby, but he's got a full set of teeth, a full head of hair. And, he's spitting everywhere, waving his arms around, right? So people are going to look at him. But that also opens up a conversation. So if they're going to ask, I'm going to answer. And his sisters are very much like that too. So don't hide it. Don't hide them. Get out there. Yeah, I don't know.
No, that's great. Yeah. That's a really great answer. Thank you so much.
I love that so much.
Yeah. And then for themselves, like I said, Christy and I are difficult. She's part of these communities and talks to people. That's what you need to do it. But if you don't feel compelled to have to do those things, you just.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
I don't have anybody in my immediate life that lives with a disability or lives with anybody with a disability. I got around them when I was a kid, so I'm very naive, for lack of a better term. And I just really appreciate you giving us our time to help us learn about Ben and help us raise awareness about rare gene diseases. And because that's what we want to do this year. It's one of our causes that we want to rally behind. And I know that maybe it might be easy to talk to, it might not be easy to talk about, but we're just really grateful for you being open and willing to share with us and help us learn and help us share and spread awareness as well. So just thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Francois. I'm just so grateful. I'm really grateful you said yes. And every time Rare Gene Day would come and go, I'm like, oh, I did it again.
I know this guy. I know this kid with the disease.
I just we wear our jeans that day, and I need to have this
that's right. Everyone wears jeans.
We should say that. We should actually say that. So can you just tell us about wearing jeans on Rare Gene Day, and then we'll let you go?
Yeah, just Rare Gene Day this year, I believe, is February, whatever, 27th to 28th. I don't know how many days there are this year, but Rare Gene Day, end of February, and just kind of to unite everyone. Everybody wears jeans, takes pictures, shares it on social media. There are many people with rare genes, rare mutations, rare whatever.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammy and Melissa.